I was at the gym and I didn't even do anything particularly crazy. I just got up weird from trying to pass someone's guard or do something like that. And I got up weird and I was like, oh shit. And the guy got up with me and was like attacking me. I was like, I just started tapping him. I'm like, no, I'm good. And I've been out of commission ever since. My back is tweaked. And I chronically have, you know, as massively strong as the rest of my body is. My Achilles heel is my my little tiny baby back. My lower back, I have the lower back of an 80-year-old person. I can't say woman, right? Because that would be saying that 80-year-old women aren't insanely strong and shredded, because they all are. Right, Jason? Yeah. So I'm scared to say that I have the back of an old lady, because I feel like on some level somebody's going to drag me for being racist.
Yes.
Against old ladies.
Yes, and it's bad because society is also pretty ageist.
Society's ageist, and we all know that all old people in general, are completely in great health. They're very strong. They can get up. They can do burpees. They're out of control, powerful.
They're good drivers.
How dare me besmirch anyone on any level for any reason ever. So yeah, I don't know, Jason. I don't. Your logic again, Jason. Sometimes he really interacts with me as if like I truly believe that he is from a different place, maybe not Earth, because he interacts with me as if I'm some weird. He puts these items on the table. It's like I don't even want to know. I don't want to know what this is. It's like a pirate token. It's terrible. What are these things, Jason? What are you doing? What is this?
Those are the newfangled tactile toys. They're very popular.
Is this like the new fidget spinner?
Yeah, they're like the new fidget spinner.
Somebody tells me this isn't new.
Well, it's within the last 3 years, I would say.
This is very remedial. This is going to soothe me. This is going to soothe my fidgety fingers.
That's for you to decide. That's for you to find out.
I don't care.
We've got a question from one of the fans.
Oh, this is terrible.
And that is relationship advice.
Oh, yeah.
I hooked up with a friend about a week and a half ago. I'm not looking for a relationship, and I don't think she is either. The sex was really good, and I want to hook up with her again. What is a respectable amount of time to wait in between hookups between friends with benefits? I don't want to seem desperate, but I also don't want to seem like I didn't enjoy the hookup. Before we hooked up, we hung out maybe 4 to 5 times a year. Low maintenance friendship.
Well, I assume this is a guy talking about a woman, not the other way around.
I believe so.
Because there's a dynamic here, right? That maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I would say, why not politely say, you know what? Those cheeks were slapping. Blazing you was a pleasure and a treasure. Let's do it again sometime, and then just wink at her. This should be a video message. Cheeks were slapping. Blazing you was a treasure beyond measure. Give her a wink and say, "Call me." If she's a keeper, she'll tell you to go fuck yourself. No, I don't know. This is such a weird question. I mean, I just like, you guys are kind of friends. Listen, you're never gonna lose out from giving something a little bit of air. I'll just say that. In the long history I've had dating people, you're never gonna lose by sometimes just like erring on the side of like space. You know, you can wait. You can always wait a little bit before you answer. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, and sometimes you just like come right over the top and call. Like I've hit someone up like right away. Not fucked around. Okay, boom, it's on. Because you just know the signals are there, the banter is great, and sometimes you know, but like, you know, that's something that you have to be experienced enough to know how to deal with. And some people are like, you know, sometimes it's like, I think if you're nervous and you feel intimidated, then you need to give it a little bit of room. And you need to be cool a little bit. Don't play too many games. You gotta play some games. You gotta have some sort of mystery. Because when the mystery is gone, it's gone.
What if you're horny and you can't wait?
You can wait. What? How old is it? It's important that I know people's age and location and sex. Any other questions?
This guy works around Erewhon. That's all we know. So probably LA.
He works for Erewhon?
Around an Erewhon.
Why is that? How is that part of the information?
He mentioned it afterwards.
I work around an Erewhon?
Yeah, you guys were talking about the sushi at Lassen's in Erewhon.
Oh, it's that guy.
It's that guy.
What's his name?
Isun.
Yeah, Isun. Listen, we're talking about Whole Foods sushi. I think there's a difference between Whole Foods, Erewhon, and Lassen's sushi, but I bet you anything it all comes from the same place. Because apparently, you might want to pull out your researcher fingers here. Apparently, one company controls the flow of like 85% of all fish, especially in America, and they're owned by the Moonies. The Moonies are like this religious sect who are kind of crazy. But yeah, one company does all the fish sales, and they probably are like somewhere connected to those little pre-made sushi boxes, which I wish I had right now. Are you Big Seafood? What does he Google? Big
Yeah,
Seafood.
the Moonies.
The Moonies, yeah.
These guys, didn't we talk about them in a previous episode?
Maybe.
They're like a cult, right?
Yeah, they're a cult.
Yeah. That looks like it's true.
Wow.
They do have a big influence on the seafood industry, and it does provide them money for their cult.
So I guess, the fact of the matter is that I'm guessing that all that supermarket sushi comes from somewhere else. And I got to tell you something. I eat the fuck out of that shit. I won't eat Gelson's sushi or Vaughn's or anything like that, or like Albertsons. I won't do that, but I will eat Whole Foods and Lassen's and Erewhon because the container is cardboard. And to me, that reads as quality. When it comes in a plastic carb, like that weird plastic foil shit, when it comes in that, I'm not eating it.
It looks cool, though. Does it still come with the little grass?
No, see, that's the bullshit. It doesn't come with the fake grass.
I like the grass.
What do you do with the grass, Jason?
I throw it out when it's very wasteful, but it's aesthetically appealing.
It's just terrible. It's so terrible. How did this happen to me? I just don't know what, sometimes life, I got to tell you something. Life can be a gentle storm, and it can guide you and push you along the leaves and the trees and, the many roads and trails. And sometimes life decides to whip itself up into a fucking tornado and place you in the middle of a parking lot. And sometimes life turns into a small cyclone that spins around and places you and a person you don't even know in your house once a week for a year to produce a show that you don't even understand anything about or what's happening. The first thing that I ever smoked weed out of, I want to say it was one of those tinfoil pipes that you make at home. Or I want to say, I think it might have been, it's either an apple, a tinfoil pipe, which is terrible, or it might have been a can. Or maybe the first thing I smoked might have just been a big ass joint. I don't really know, but I do remember as a youth smoking out of all of those things at certain times, right? I remember kind of thinking about the apple thing and being like, oh, fuck yeah, that's cool. You get to smoke out of the apple, and then after you smoke out of the apple, you get to eat it, man. And you guys know that I love apples. And I do wish I could smoke. I can't, though, because if I smoke weed, I will literally explode.
This guy said he smoked out of a Red Bull can the first time. And when you did smoke, what was your favorite preferred method of intaking marijuana, cannabis?
I mean, there's nothing like smoking a joint, I think. But if you want to be economical and you're a kid, you have a bong. Joints and blunts are great, but I mean, it's all good, right? But I when I moved out of I started to tell the story. When I moved out of my house, I had to leave home. Okay, I had a situation in my home and I had to be moved out. My dad was like, I'm going to get you out of here. It was kind of like under the cover of night. It was like I was fleeing the border, right? So I had to move into an apartment. He got me into this apartment. And basically what happened was I had an apartment and I was probably 17. And I was probably a senior in high school, I would guess. Not doing great, but just kind of getting by my wits. And at the time too, I was like fully invested in graffiti and smoking weed. So I get into this house and I just remember all these like juvenile dreams of like my first place started coming true. I was like, when I was a kid, I used to get high and be like, dude, when I get a fucking house, I'm going to get a whole room and fill it up with bean bags. And I did managed to buy like 5 or 6 massive bean bags. But the problem is me and my stupid friends got drunk and had a beanbag fight. So then instead of my house being full of 5 bean bags, it was full of 64 million little bits of foam from inside the bean bags. And you know, and one of the things I remember I went down to this head shop in Venice near the Circle, near the post office back in the day. And I saved up my money and to buy this 3-foot graphics bong. And I was so excited. I was so over the top. And I remember like coming home with this thing and just being like, it's so fucking on.
Was it just a straight up bong, or did they have like percolators and that?
No, it's just like it was a glass. It was a piece of acrylic, piece of gray acrylic that said graphics on it with a fucking thing, a little snapper. And you had to have somebody else, someone else had to pull it out usually. Oh no, I think you can do it on your own. I think it was like just long enough where you could just smoke out of it and pop it. Because there was a 3-foot and there was a 6-foot for the real heads.
Nice.
And the real heads had the 6-foot bongs. And you go to someone's house, some kid's house, and there was like literally a 6-foot bong. Like that's how, listen, back in the day, marijuana, weed, that culture as a kid was so intense. And everyone in the 90s in LA was so obsessed with weed because we had the best weed. I don't know if we still do, because now it's probably, you know, nationwide, but we had the best weed in the country, and everyone was so deep into it that, like, you know, having a 6-foot bong in your you know, living room as a 20-something kid was super normal. And having to smoke out of something that takes 2 people to operate was also super normal. And I do remember that house, that apartment being the way it was. This guy came over and he brought over a little piece of crack. I think he had a 20 piece of crack. Jesus. And he puts it in my 3-foot graphics bong. And he smokes the whole thing and snaps it. And we're just looking at this guy like, you know, and like a, you know, 20 piece of crack will get you through, like, you know, I don't know, could get a couple hours on that. And he just kills the whole thing in one massive bong hit. And we remember looking at the dude and being like, whoa, and his bell was rung. I mean, it like altered his consciousness in such a way that he became a different person. I do remember that. And, you know, and listen, there was a, you know, having that apartment, you know, a lot of people, you know, I was 17. It was the early 90s. I was heavily into graffiti, heavily into drugs. And it just became this crazy hub where people would come by, and it was a party nonstop. Upstairs was this dude Bagel lived upstairs. They were partying. I was partying. And I kept odd hours. I remember Bagel, like, we weren't really hanging out when I first moved in, and we started hanging out. And he was like, oh, they used to watch us and be like, what the fuck are those guys doing? Because we were all raving and shit. So they'd see us coming home like 6 a.m. Those guys are going out to surf. They see us coming home 6 a.m. dressed like fucking freaks, completely eyes just spinning. And then we go into the house and just keep going, you know. And we keep it going through the weekend on. And I remember this one time, there was a guy named... Raven. A guy named Raven, and him and some other guys. This is also, while this was also going on too, there was a heavy nitrous scene happening. There was like the first wave of probably not the first, but that was my first wave of nitrous before it came back a couple years ago. Nitrous made a huge resurgence a few years ago, but it kind of went dormant for a long time. People weren't fucking with nitrous, but we were heavily into nitrous. So that's another thing would happen. Is like, you know, my buddy Cross would have this nitrous tank, and he would have it, and he would get it filled up at the autos, wherever they fill up nitrous. And we would have balloons like in the club. And then after the club, we'd like just sit around doing balloons all night. Just go, roar, roar, you know, that whole thing. And I remember this one time, this guy Raven, he had a nitrous tank, and the way that his nitrous tank came, basically him and some other guys stole a nitrous tank from a hospital, a 6-foot medical nitrous tank. Okay. Now, I don't know if there's a difference between car nitrous and medical nitrous, but that's how I've always told the story. It's medical nitrous, dude. It's very serious. So this 6-foot tank showed up, and it was I was the only one with a fucking apartment. Yeah. So the tank lived in my house.
Hell yeah.
And then with the tank, this girl just like was attached to the tank. This like little speed freak girl was attached to the nitrous tank. So she came with the tank.
Nice.
And
did you fuck her?
No, I didn't fuck her. It was weird. Like, it never even crossed she was so like not anything that I was interested in on any level. Plus she was really into speed, which I was never like, I couldn't fucking handle that shit. And she was just like, came with the tank. And it was so weird because as long as the tank was in my house, she wasn't leaving. So the tank was there for probably a couple days. And you just do, it's just as much. It's a 6-foot fucking nitrous tank. It's just like
Pretty fucked up.
yeah. And I think he kept it there for a minute until he had to take it somewhere else. And when the tank left, she left. And I remember watching this girl. She had a little quarter of speed, and I watched her eat it. I watched her unwrap the bindle and just eat it. And I had done speed once or twice by that time, and I was terrified of it because I would do a little bit of speed and be up just completely fucked for like so long, and it was so painful. The come down was so painful that I was like, I'll never do that again. But yeah, this girl came and attached herself to the nitrous tank, and then when Raven came and got his tank, she left with him. She was going wherever that tank went. She was just along for the ride. She's like one of those little things that suck on the side of sharks. Those little, what do they call it? Those little fish that suction on them.
Some kind of a barnacle.
Something like that, yeah. But to a night, it's listen, that whole path of following substances, it can really ruin your life. I don't know if that's a newsflash to anyone. The drugs will fuck you up, but there was another time when Chunk, we've talked about Chunk a couple times on the show.
I don't actually remember Chunk.
No? I think GK and I were telling Chunk stories. Chunk had sold Raven again. I'm pretty sure it was Raven because Raven was going through some things. Chunk had gotten Raven some Sherm. He was selling Raven Sherm. And again, somehow my house being the hub for these things, there was a Ziploc bag this full of just Sherm sticks, right? And like something happened where like Chunk got the money from Raven, but Raven didn't pick up the Sherm sticks. So the Sherm sticks were at my house. I was like, I can't have those in the house. Just put them outside in the bushes. So we put them outside the house in the bushes, and we're a bunch of bored guys hanging out. Eventually, we're like, let's smoke one of those things. Let's see what they're all about. Let's check this shit out. So we all started smoking these Sherm sticks, and it's pretty much like one of the most terrible drugs I've ever done. I mean, it's a complete disassociative. It smells horrible. Your head feels like it's just in a vice. It's fucking terrible. And you smoke Sherm, and you're just like, you're just kind of like, I started trying to do the stereotypical things that you hear that Sherm heads do, like, I think this went on for a couple of days. We were smoking these Sherm sticks, and I remember one time I was like, I had this like wooden screen door on the building, on the house, and I just was like, I'm gonna run through the door. And they're like, you should do it. And I did it, and I ran full speed and blew through the wooden screen door. And it was like I lived a block away from the beach, so like I just come flying out of the apartment with wood scattering everywhere. Like, and there's this family of tourists who are just fucking terrified. Imagine like a 17-year-old me flying out of a screen door at you at full speed, just out of his mind on Sherm.
Did you hurt yourself?
No, I didn't hurt myself.
That sounds fun, honestly.
It was fun. But then later on, one of those nights, I was out with Freck, rest in peace, and this other dude, Sam, and we were at Cantor's. We were at Cantor's, and
a very famous deli here.
Very famous deli in LA. And we were at Cantor's, and we had gone to a club on Sherm, and we're at Cantor's, and we're so high as a kite. And they brought me. The thing I ordered to eat was Jello. I ordered Jello to eat. I don't know why. And I got this thing of Jello. There was no cutlery, so I'm holding this thing of Jello up, and I'm trying to get the waitress. And I remember holding the Jello and looking up at the ceiling at Cantor's. It's like this really weird, like stained glass foliage, kind of tripping out on the ceiling. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at this thing of Jello, and I just decide to take the Jello and suck it down my throat. And I do that. Did I tell you this story before? I do that, and I put the Jello in my mouth, and I try to suck the whole piece of Jello down, and it just goes whoop and lodges in my throat. And the Jello is stuck in my throat. And then I'm like, and I'm just and my friends are laughing. They're like, ah! They're laughing at me, and I'm choking to death on the Jello, and I fall down under the booth, and they're still laughing because I was a clown. And I'm still laughing. They're still laughing at me, and I'm just like literally dying. And at the last minute, I kind of just and I hawk up this just huge chunk of Jello, and I lived. Everybody, it was great. It was a great victory for me in the fight for staying alive that I was often involved in those days. Once again, I lived, and and I don't need Jello, and to this day,
really,
not
you developed a
probably not. 'Cause
dislike.
I don't find Jello that interesting, to be honest.
Were you the clown in your friend group, you said?
I've been known to clown.
Do you find it hard for them to take you seriously at times?
You know, you know what happens? I do like to fuck around still to this day. And then people often think I'm kidding when I'm not.
That's right.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, no, or sometimes they're expecting me to do something and it's the furthest from my mind, or they think I'm pranking. But I'm like, people, I'm not going to prank you. And like, I'm not going to like the thing that they think that I'm going to joke about is so stupid that I'm like, why would I joke about like, you know, bringing you the wrong fruit or like, did I get you apple? Like, that's not funny. Like, I don't, you know, like once in a while I'll engage in some sort of stupid prank, but I don't even know if it's a prank. I need to amuse myself. I mean, I think that like, you know, like taking the time to scare your girlfriend whenever you can, or like, I think that stuff's great. And I think I would love if it was done to me. I love being fucked with. Actually, I went to my girls' family had a Seder for Passover. Mm-hmm. I went there and I ate. The food was amazing, by the way. Brisket, this almond cake. Now this is back to being a food show. The brisket was mind-boggling. Uncle Barry did the brisket. And Zoe made this almond cake that was literally so good that I couldn't even, I was haunted by it the next day. I think there's something about almond cake that blows, like you ever eat something and it connects to your taste buds so well that, this is what happens to me. Sometimes I eat things and they're so good that I somehow convince myself that it can't be bad for me. That's how good it tastes. What is your food that's like that for you, Jason? That
I've developed a craving for?
No, that you eat and then you're instantly bond to.
I mean, I think like Taco Bell and those things are highly addictive.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I mean, what else am I supposed to say? It's true.
I don't know, something like, you know, I had a piece of cheesecake from so-and-so, or one day I had this like, you know, I had a steak or maybe a ginger or grilled cheese. But Taco Bell.
No, I can't think of anything.
Shout out Taco Bell, by the way.
Yeah, great brand.
So yeah, I fell asleep on the ground because I was so full of brisket and cake. And Ella decided to walk up and get an inch from my face and yell while I was asleep. So then I ended up screaming. And she thought it was very funny, but I'm like, I just screamed in front of your entire family, laying on my back like a psycho. So if that's what you want people to see, then it's been seen. So shall it be. As Moses delivered the pharaohs and made sure that there were no more slaves, and I ate the almond cake and the brisket, such is the leavened matzah and the wine that we shall partake in to understand the tears of the fallen.
So it shall be written.
So it shall be written. So it shall be done. Amen Ra. Blessings. This has been a great show. Am I free yet?
Have you seen the Ten Commandments?
No, I haven't really watched that movie.
No.
Have you seen Batman?
The Batman?
Yes.
No, I still haven't seen the Batman.
What's wrong with you? How have you not seen the Batman? I feel like that's so up your alley.
It's 3 hours long and I don't like superhero movies that much.
What? I thought you were like, what?
You don't know me.
God, you don't like superhero movies?
Not that much.
I thought you were a nerd, dude.
Superhero nerds there's lots
different
of types
type of
nerds. And nowadays, like everybody's a nerd. So yeah, what are you going to do anymore?
You're such a nerd that you can't be called a nerd because there's fake nerds.
Yeah, there's posers out there nowadays.
Oh, shit. Well, I saw the Batman movie and I started watching it again on HBO. Why? Why is that funny?
You started watching it twice already? No,
I watch all those big movies. I watch a couple times.
If you like something, you like something.
I will watch. You think I'm gonna watch Dune like 10 times before I'm done? Like the new one. I've watched the old Dune literally, I don't know, 30 times minimum. Maybe that's a bit much, but definitely I've probably watched the old Dune. It could have been 20 to 30 times.
Once a year.
Once a year I would watch it. Yeah, and I'm only 27, so there you go. So. Yeah, the new Batman film. Look, there's a lot of mixed reviews. People are like, it's so long. I don't know why. Why is anyone ever complaining about a movie being too long? Who gives a shit? If it's great, enjoy it.
I mean, if I may weigh in, I just think a lot of movies are long now is part of the problem.
That's not a problem, man. Movies don't need to get shorter. This isn't, what was that stupid app? Was it the one
TikTok?
No. They tried to make an app where everything was short. It was like a film channel. It was like a
paid
TV
service.
No, it was like a TV show, like it was trying to be a network like Hulu or one of those things.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And it was like everything was like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
and it just died instantly because we don't have an attention span, but we don't want to be catered to in that manner.
When you don't want to pay for something that short, it seems.
Yeah.
Unless it's music, but even then.
So I watched the new Batman, and I got to say that it's good. Like there's a lot of mixed messages about it, but it's like, that same director too, I think, is doing Hellraiser, the new Hellraiser reboot. Now, are you a horror nerd?
Not really. That's also I do like Hellraiser though. I think
you're not a horror nerd and you're not a superhero nerd. What kind of nerd are you?
Let's see. I like Star Wars. I like Conan the Barbarian.
You're a science fiction nerd.
I'm a sci-fi fantasy. I'm kind of
nerd.
a pulp guy, let's say.
He's a sci-fi fantasy pulp. Well, how does a pulp factor in?
Well, those are like pulp things. Like,
is that pulp?
Yeah, Star Wars is like a distillation of pulp movies from the 1930s and whatever, and Conan is a pulp character. I went to film school. Okay, nerd. Look, I like pulp stuff. I like pulp too. Frank Frazetta. Yeah, well, sure. We all love Frazetta. Sure. Frazetta's the boss. I saw there's a van down the street that's been lurking around Los Feliz, and the whole side of it is painted in the style of Frank Frazetta, and I keep meaning to take a picture of it. Frazetta is a G. I love that. There's a Liquid Death van near me that has I think it's a man's body that's like jacked. He's holding an axe, and then he has a Liquid Death can for his head. And it looks like Frazetta. Frazetta's speaking your language. Well, does it ever cross over with Thor? Did you like Thor Ragnarok? Yeah, I like Thor Ragnarok. When I watched it in theaters, when we're with people who are laughing and really enjoying it, it is very infectious. It's a great movie. I watched it with my friends who are less familiar with Marvel things afterwards. Interestingly, not as good a movie when you watch it with people who don't understand all the references and all the preset character. But yeah, I guess dynamics. So. But as far as the movies in that universe, that Thor Ragnarok is fire. Arguably the best one. Yeah. I don't know if it's the best one, but it's really good. And then you watch the other Thors, and none of them have the verve and the gusto that Ragnarok has. That's Ragnarok is something else. It's funny. It's exciting. It looks amazing. It's over the top in the best possible way. The guy really fucking shook the candy store into the sugar mill and I don't know. Taika Waititi. Yeah, Taika Waititi. And now he's like an actor, and he's dated Rita Ora, which is the benefits of becoming an A-list director. You get to start dating a pop star. Oh yeah. But she never really became a pop star. She's like Rita Ora is like a person who like was almost always going to make something, but never really did. But she's probably famous in Europe or something like that. I don't really understand her deal. Me neither. But I do know that a lot of friends of mine have known dudes that have dated Rita Ora. Really? Which is interesting. Yeah. How is she? I don't know how she is, but I just know that it's interesting that she dates a lot. She dates a lot of guys, I guess. What kind of girl was the nitrous girl? Like, what other things is a girl like that into at that time period? I don't think I had any idea what she was into. She's like this little, like, tiny white girl who's a speed freak and loved nitrous. She's most likely dead, still following some version of the Dead, fully reformed in AA soldier of Christ, or all of the above and married with kids. She could be anything. She could be a fucking neurosurgeon at this point. You never listen. I'm going to tell you guys something. You never know who's going to do what to and where and when. There was a guy we used to hang out with who was he was in a local punk gang, and he used to sell us ecstasy. And I heard he became a doctor. Can you believe this? This crazy Russian guy. I heard he became a doctor. Can you imagine? Yeah, I know a graffiti guy who became a lawyer. Graffiti kid, let's not say graffiti guy. See, this is the thing. How much of there are graffiti guys and there are graffiti guys. Yeah, I would say graffiti kid, like he did it when he was a kid. And how much did he do? Did he really do graffiti? Was he in a crew? I think it was, during like high school. He was in a graffiti crew? Yeah, he was from Orange County. Orange County, LA? Yeah. What graffiti crew is in Orange County? I don't know any of the details. I need to know. But he did tag on Venice Beach at the, like, you can... He tagged pay or whatever to tag there. He tagged on Venice Beach and he paid to tag. That's the worst. That's the worst endorsement of a graffiti writer I've ever heard. Look, man, you're not paying to tag on Venice Beach, okay? But he did become a lawyer. Okay. Well, see, that's the thing. My brother was going down a path of juvenile delinquency when he was a kid. He started becoming a juvenile delinquent. He was living in New York and he started doing weird juvenile delinquent shit. And all of a sudden, he got caught shoplifting. And all of a sudden, on a fucking dime, Brad, I know you're listening. On a dime, he's like, I'm done. And he enrolled himself into military school.
And then you know what he does? He went from a juvenile delinquent, not to put his business out on the street, but sorry, from doing nothing crazy. He was just doing like vandalism and shoplifting and stuff like that. He just like, he gets popped. He goes, puts himself in military school. And then you know what he does? He goes to Harvard and he becomes a scientist. And now he's in sciences and he's working on software that helps map the human brain and protect the areas of the brain that are important when they're doing brain surgery. And I hope he makes it because he'll make so much money. He'll be a billionaire if it goes through. And I go, Brad, shoot me 16 mil just on the strength as your big brother who's still trying to, sell t-shirts. This is in the year 2029. Still trying to sell t-shirts, still trying to get a film made. Shoot me 16 mil so I can just take a break because I'm tired. I'm tired, Brad. And you're so rich, and now you're part of the Illuminati, and now you're going to you're friends with the Obamas, and you're going on the cruises, and you're cloning your dogs, and your children are now have their own assistants, and all these things, and you're so rich, and it does change you some. But I want you to remember that we were brothers. We used to pee in the same toilet at the same time. We used to play in the woods in upstate New York in my mom's house. And we used to argue over who got the most. If there was a piece of cake that had to be shared between the two of us, we were out there with fucking with levels and rulers. We were down to the last micro crumb, had to be split perfectly even, or else there would be hell to pay. That's how competitive we were as siblings. Do you have any siblings?
No, but arguably my most successful was arrested for shoplifting as a teenager.
I love the Discord. I love the people on there. All the people coming on. We're so close to hitting 1,000 members. Everybody, we just need 6 more. Everyone, listen, like and subscribe. Follow us. Follow the YouTube. Get on the Discord. Learn about the universe of powerful truth angels. Learn about what's going to happen. You get insider information on Born and Raised. You might know early about an NFT drop. You get to see a jacket that I'm wearing that no one's ever seen before. A beautiful green coach's jacket with zippers and buttons. This jacket is so fucking fire. I'm not going to lie. I would buy this jacket if I didn't make this jacket. You got to test. One thing I say about my jackets, I'm going to say this, and I always tell the cut and sew designer is, don't give me a shallow pocket. And these are shallow pocketed. Pocket bags are small. I want to be able to put past my hand. These aren't the most shallow pockets, but they are somewhat shallow. I like deep pockets on everything. I want a deep fucking pocket. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, otherwise they're not very functional.
They're not very functional, but it's fine. This is not too shallow. It'll fit your wallet. It'll fit a little 22, a lollipop, your chronic nuggets, maybe your pipe, maybe a scale. Born and Raised.com. Go there now. It's live. 420 sale. Let's go. Blaze it. Cypress Hill. Weed rolling weed. And we be weeding.
Sick.
You know what's crazy is that A&W, the root beer in Canada, is like a whole. It's a whole. I mean, maybe outside of California, also, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a chain around.
I've never eaten it at A&W in my life. Like, what is their specialty?
They have like burgers and root beer on tap.
Right, which is like interesting that you're gonna go get an A&W burger and that's like a thing.
Yeah, it is.
And it makes me wonder too. Like this is a chain that is. I don't know anything about this chain. Maddie's doing a project with them, but the guy, whoever owns the rights to this, is probably a billionaire quietly. Nobody. Who the fuck eats an A&W burger? Who's ever had one? I don't know. No. Listen, hype is life. I knew he was an only child. So obviously, I knew the answer before I asked the question. When I said, "Do you have siblings?" There's no way in hell you have. There's no way. It's so obvious that you're an only child. It's crazy.
Why is that?
I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. I think because you didn't have anyone to talk to. That's what's made you so bizarre.
Yeah, well, you're only exposed to adults, so you lose.
Well, Eastern said there was an A&W in Norwalk. What the fuck? Is A&W good? I mean, they can make a root beer float's kind of a draw, I guess.
Yeah, they have the root beer like on tap in a keg.
Okay, I hear you that they have root beer on tap on a keg.
It's a good gimmick.
The most high I've been is when I cleared 6 bongs in a blunt on 4/20/2014. He remembers the date. My friend thought it would be a good idea to put on Limitless and Guardians of the Galaxy back to back. I backed that, except Limitless does not pair well with Guardians of the Galaxy. Not only did the visuals fuck me up to the point of becoming catatonic, Alex, I cannot stress this enough. I really had to shit, but my paranoia was so bad I didn't want to shit at my homies in case he heard. So 4.5 hours later, I sat on the verge of shitting myself and then shat myself on the way home in broad daylight. What's the worst film to watch while high? I think one of the best films is, El Topo or anything that, what's his face does. And maybe one of the worst films to watch would be like probably a Serbian film, probably the worst film to watch while you're stoned. Maybe.
Yeah, that's the worst movie to watch, period.
Alex, what got you into sobriety and how do you stay in sobriety? Okay, Pops. What got me in sobriety is I was like a complete degenerate who's going to die if he kept doing drugs. And what keeps me in sobriety is my need to live a functional life. And I'm so glad that I'm sober. As much as I joke about getting high, I don't ever want to do it again. But it's a daily reprieve. And one day at a time, I stay sober 6.5+ years. We should do, what we should do, Jason, is we should do a store sushi taste test.
I like that.
Erewhon versus Lassen's versus Whole Foods.
7-Eleven.
No. Oh, do we have to add that in?
Yeah, you have to have a shitty one.
Fuck. Not 7-Eleven. There's no sushi there, and I would never eat it if there was.
There is sushi.
There is not. At 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Okay. Even better, let's do a blind taste test. I won't eat 7-Eleven. We'll do like Gelson's or Albertsons. Okay.
You'll never know.
Erewhon. Okay, fine. If you want to slide in the Erewhon, because now I'm roping you into doing this bit. We do Erewhon versus Lassen's versus Whole Foods versus Gelson's or Albertsons. Okay. And we'll do a taste test. The problem is there's going to be a lot of leftover sushi. So I got to do that with a guest. Probably a couple, because I can take down one of those trays and then I'm good. When should we do that?
We can do it next week.
What are you smoking at the first time? Boom. The best acid I had was Purple Ink on Perf or the Gold Shiva Blotter. Happy hip. What's the best acid I've ever had? Slice. I think the best acid I ever had was window pane. I had some window pane from San Francisco back in the 90s. And unfortunately, I paired it with mescaline and Southern Comfort and had a complete psychic break and destroyed the mirror behind a bar downtown called Glam Slam. I've told this story before. But that was some really good acid. And then, my old man had this liquid, had a vial of liquid acid that I got a hold of, and it was pretty weak, but it was fun. It just made you feel kind of cruisy,
Nice. What does a true psychic break feel like?
Oh, well, what's the weed culture like? Born and raised, are you allowed to medicate on the job?
Someone mentioned you talked about that on a previous podcast.
What, smoking weed?
Born and raised weed's culture. You talked about that.
Like, what do we talk about? What do you mean?
Just it being, there's a lot of weed. There's been a lot of weed at Born and Raised. People would come in with pounds with a lot of weed.
Oh, listen. This is a great. This is great. I think I talked about this. Shout out to Skinhead Rob. He's not listening, but shout out to that man. That dude, Skinhead Rob's the homie. He's such a solid fucking dude. And when we had the office in MacArthur Park, Skinhead Rob would come by. And it just turned into a thing where he'd come by a couple times a week and he would just come by and just start facing blunts, right? And he'd come by and like me and shout out to Carlos. I've told this story before. Carlos would have a desk, I'd have a desk, and Rob would come by and we'd sit down with Rob and he would light a blunt and you're smoking a blunt, you're talking. He's pretty quiet. He wouldn't be talking to much. He'd just be kind of like, yep, chilling. You smoke a blunt and you're smoking this blunt and we're talking about something. He's like, yeah. And then while you're smoking this blunt, he's rolling another blunt. And then there's another blunt in circulation. And then you're like, okay, there's 2 blunts now. And now I'm like, at one point you're double fisted. You're smoking 2 blunts. Then there's a third blunt. He's rolling another blunt. So he would sit there and just smoke. You smoke 3 fucking blunts. And of course the whole thing is like, you're at work. You're amongst like your work colleagues. Sponto was in and out because he was sick. So he'd be in there, but he'd be fucking half crazy with the fucking chemo. Carlos was there. Darius was on the periphery at this point. And me and Carlos would smoke weed and we would get super fucking high, like really high, and then go back and sit in front of our computers and just be like this. And I'd be like trying to like work on stuff, and I would look over and see Carlos, and he'd look at me and he'd be like, dude, I feel like all my skin's gone. I'm like, me too. I'm skinless. That's how high we were. We were fucking, and you know, and many a day, it was fucking great. It was great for a long time. And then I got sober and I couldn't do it. But I used to love when Skinhead Rob would come visit and we would just get fucking completely blitzed. And also another time during that period when I was also, you know, it got really ugly because I started just like doing coke all the time in the office. And I made this shirt.
Was that to offset the weed?
Yeah. After a while, the weed just became like, the weed is just like a base coat. Like weed and booze is a base coat.
Because you get tired, right? If you don't.
Yeah, but it wasn't like the coke was just like it all just became a cocktail. It was all a thing. And I used to play a game. I don't know why this turned into this episode again, but like whatever. I used to play a game where I would like I had this big desk and all this shit on it. You know, like samples, all this work. And what I would do is I have drawers, and you know, I have a drawer that would have like a straw in it, and like, you know, and I'd have like a little thing with like lines of coke on it, or like I'd put a line of coke on the table and cover it with a piece of paper, and there'd be a room full of people hanging out and talking, and I'd be talking too, and I'd be like, oh man, that guy was so funny, and I'd time it to when everyone wasn't looking, and I go and I rip a line and I pop back up and be like, yeah, anyway, so, and I used to play this weird game where I was like, well, if I do it in front of them, then I'm not lying about it. I was just completely out of my mind. It was terrible. It's just not. Being a drug addict is like, it sounds funny in retrospect, but it sucks. I was a sucky ass person. I apologize. I'm going to apologize on a public scale. I apologize to Carlos because I probably made his life a living hell. I apologize to Sponto. Probably made his life a living hell. And all the people that worked for me, I probably made their lives shitty by being a fucking worthless a drug addict who just kind of was, you know, stumbling through designing. I remember I remember at the time I started listening to Steely Dan a lot. I don't know why. And I got it in my mind that I was going to make a shirt that says any major dude will tell you because of that song or album. I don't know what it was. So I made a shirt that just had in giant black type, any major dude will tell you, with a Born and Raised logo on it. It makes no fucking sense. Completely coke delusion. You know, like, and not, you know, sometimes people go into coke delusion and end up becoming wildly successful behind it, but I didn't. I picked some song that no one gave a shit about, and only one person liked it, and her name's Natasha, and she loves that shirt, and I have one person for that, one person audience for that one stupid fucking t-shirt. I'm a much more effective, am I going to Coachella? I've never been, I'm never gonna go. No, I do not want to be on a field with 1,000 people ever. I hate it. I don't like being in giant groups. It's not like I just don't like herds of people. It just, and not to say I don't like being around. I like being around a lot of people. Like I like going to the beach. I like going to a park and looking at people, but being in a controlled area with all these people in it, and I just get burnt out, you know, like going to Coachella sober is like, I don't know. What's the sketchiest drug deal you've ever... I mean, the sketchiest drug deal I've ever experienced. I guess the sketchiest would be the one where I got arrested buying drugs when I was a kid. And we were high as a kite, me and this guy, Little Man. And we went into the hood to buy drugs, and we had a beach cruiser with a flat tire, and he was on the handlebars, and I was riding him to go buy drugs, and we got caught by the cops. I guess that's sketchy. There's been other situations I've been in that have been sketchy in a different way, but it was always sketchy when you're buying hard drugs off the street. You know, if you don't have someone to bring it to you, if you're going out and getting off the street, there's always an element. What's your wildest or most memorable psychedelic stories?
We've talked about a lot of those.
I have, right? I think I've covered all of them. If you had to pick one, shrooms or weed, I think shrooms. Shrooms, like being a stoner is a lot of fun. Fucking, this coin is going down. Whoa, this coin shot the fuck up.
All right, podcast.
I got fully distracted.
Nice. What about the psychic break? Was that like, you never described that?
Oh, like what is a psychic break?
Well, what does it feel like? Because I always wonder.
A true psychic break is when where reality has left the building and there's a new reality that you think is real. Like I told this story. I thought that my friend, I was a teenager. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was scared. I was on a lot of fucking drugs. And I thought my friend Crush had secretly been a multimillionaire.
We never
and
talked
had a
about this.
place in, yeah, I talked about it on the show. I thought that he secretly was a millionaire. Somehow, this is what I extrapolated from talking to him. He was secretly a millionaire. He had a house in New York. He was going to take care of everything. It was all covered, and I also believe that he owned the bar that we were in. And my answer is like, and it was like, this is our bar. And I go, this is our bar. And I go, well, check this out. And I take a glass and I throw it at the mirror behind the bartender and break the mirror. Which is like, if someone tells you that this is your bar, your answer is to destroy it. It's completely. And that delusion, I told this story. That delusion went on until I walked out of the club in the daytime. Well, I got beat up by the bouncers. They beat the shit out of me. My pants fell off. They kicked me out of the club. This is in downtown near like Temple. And I walk outside and I'm walking around completely out of my mind on mescaline and acid and everything. And I'm looking up at the office building, at the top of this office building, being like, that's our building. Like, delusional. And I'm walking in this parking lot, and there's a woman like just full siren song trying to lure me into her van. She's like, come with me. And I'm like walking across this parking lot like, and then Crush pulls up. He had a little tiny gold MR2. And
this is the part you've talked about.
I talked about, yeah. And he pulls up in his MR2 and he goes, Tudon, come on. And I'm like, what? And he goes, come with me. And I go, okay. And I turn around to go with him. And then he leaves me there. And he just takes off. So then I turn around, she's gone, he's gone. And I'm by myself in the middle of downtown LA. And I go to a payphone and I call my roommate Tuma and I'm like, I'm in downtown. I don't know where I am. He's like, I can't help you. And then I'm standing there in the corner, early in the morning, and a truck comes by. Gardeners in a truck pull up, and I'm like, are you guys going to Venice? They're like, yeah, we're going to the Circle. So I just hop in. Like, first guy I asked, that's the weirdest part about the whole story, is that me at 17 in size 52 fucking Levi's, probably a shaved head and like weird fucking shirt, asked the first truck that pulls up if they're going to Venice from downtown, and they are. And they just drop me off at the Circle, and I just stumble home, and I go in my room, and like, I look at my books and they're all coming out of the shelves and rearranging themselves in geometric patterns. And I think I went and just got in the water, went to the beach, and slept it off. As many a morning ended for me.
So it was like fully schizophrenic.
I went fully schizophrenic for sure. Yeah, completely checked out, like a break from reality. Yeah,
crazy.
Oh yeah. I can't recall, but he talks about the early years of BXR, and dudes coming. Yeah. That was funny. Yeah. I remember kids coming in when it became the trend to come in with like 2 to 3 pounds of weed. Like, instead of just, when I was a kid, it was like you have a quarter and then you buy another quarter. They would just come in with garbage bags full of weed, just casually smoking. Like, I remember being like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was a big flex.
Because look, I was out of drug culture for 12 years, and I jumped back in full, like both feet, fully involved. And like, then I jumped back into drug culture. Weed is legal. I remember going to get a weed license, and I remember being there, and the doctor took my blood pressure. He goes, your blood pressure is really high, because I was fucking high on coke all the time. He's like, your blood pressure is really high. I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, you should get it checked out. I'm like, I will. I'm just giving my fucking weed license. So then I had the weed license. So then it was like, I'm going to the weed store all the time to buy all these different, weeds. Weeds? What else? Sketchiest drug, best sober love party experience. What's your best sober love / party experience? I mean, some of my best experiences have been, I think, but the best experience I've had have been sober and experiencing life as a sober person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And experiencing things in a real way and processing ups and downs. I'm still learning how to process ups and downs, and not to take the ups and downs too seriously. Because the ups, you can get lost in the ups and you can get lost in the downs. It's good to kind of find a middle ground. Things aren't going well, the world's not ending. Things are going really well, the world isn't yours. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And on that note, what a great fucking show. I think we've done it. I think we got there.